I wasn't supposed to be there that late. Her lights should have been off, the kind of house where blinds are drawn at 9 and the only sound is the hum of the fridge. But when I walked past, her kitchen window glowed soft yellow, spilling onto the street like it was waiting for someone. I stopped. That's the truth. I stopped even though I told myself to keep moving. And when I saw her, leaning on the counter with a glass of wine, hair pinned up messily like she'd given up halfway, it didn't feel like spying. It felt like being pulled. She turned her head at just the wrong second. Or the right one. Our eyes met through the glass. Her lips parted like she was about to say something, though she was a good 10 feet away. I almost lifted my hand, then caught myself. A second later, the door clicked open. She didn't call my name, didn't scold, didn't even smile. Just, well, you're here already. Might as well come in. Inside, the air was warm, smelling faintly of rosemary and the wine she'd left untouched on the counter. She poured another without asking, slid it toward me. I didn't drink much, but I took it anyway, because saying no would have broken the spell. She leaned against the sink, arms crossed. I sat at the edge of the stool like I was trespassing. Silence stretched. She let it. You always walk this way? She asked finally. Sometimes. I fiddled with the stem of the glass. Not usually this late. Her brow lifted, faintly amused. So tonight's an exception. I nodded. She didn't look away. The kitchen clock ticked too loudly in the pause that followed. I wanted to fill it, to explain myself, but my throat tightened. So I sipped the wine. It was dry, too sharp, but it gave my hands something to do. You shouldn't be here, she said eventually, softer than I expected. People talk. I don't care. The words came out faster than I meant, and I instantly regretted the bluntness. But she didn't flinch, just pressed her lips together, like she was holding something back. You're, what, 23? She asked. 26. Still a boy. She smiled then, though it was the kind that hides as much as it shows. I wanted to say something clever, something older than I felt, but instead I asked, does that bother you? Her eyes narrowed. Not angry, just measuring. What bothers me is that you don't think it should. Her tone carried weight, yet she didn't move away. She stayed there, arms crossed, studying me like she couldn't decide if I was trouble or relief. And I couldn't stop noticing the small things, the faint crease by her eye, the way she tapped her thumb against her glass, the looseness of her robe where it barely tied at the waist. She must have noticed my stare because she set the glass down a little too hard. This stays between us. Her voice wasn't commanding. It was closer to pleading, though she covered it quickly. I swallowed. Then seal it with a, I cut myself off, heat rushing up my neck. Too much, too fast. Her head tilted, and for a heartbeat, her expression softened, like she'd heard the word anyway. A flicker of something passed between us, something that felt both dangerous and inevitable. And then, the doorbell rang. The doorbell startled both of us. She froze mid-breath, then set her glass down as though it had suddenly turned fragile. Stay here, she whispered, and slipped out of the kitchen. I sat there listening, the creak of the hallway floor, the murmur of voices at the front door. A neighbor, maybe. Someone borrowing sugar, or worse, someone who shouldn't know I was here. My pulse thudded louder than the clock. When she returned, she didn't explain, just closed the kitchen door behind her, leaned against it, and sighed. Wrong address, she said, though her eyes didn't match her words. She picked her glass back up, took a longer sip this time. I wanted to ask who it really was, but I didn't. Something in her face told me not to. Instead, I asked, you live here alone? She smirked faintly. You think I'd admit it if I didn't? That stung, though I wasn't sure why. I ran a hand through my hair, buying time. I didn't mean it like, I know. Her voice softened. I used to. With my husband. He left 3 years ago. She waved her glass like she was brushing the thought aside. Divorce papers signed. Nothing scandalous. Just gone. I nodded, staring at the rim of my drink. I wanted to say I understood, though I'd never been married. My own history felt too small beside hers. A couple of half-serious girlfriends, a string of people who said I was too young to know what I wanted. Maybe they were right. She was still watching me. And you? What about me? Don't tell me you've been saving yourself for moments like this. Her mouth curved, teasing, but her eyes searched deeper. I shifted on the stool, suddenly aware of how close we were. I've dated. Nothing that stuck. They all left first. I hesitated. Said I wasn't serious enough. Her laugh was short, almost bitter. They didn't know what they wanted either. The silence that followed wasn't awkward this time. It felt weighted, like the room had grown smaller around us. I caught myself staring again, at the line of her throat, the loose curl falling from her hairpin, the way her robe slipped just slightly at the shoulder. I looked away too late. "You shouldn't," she said quietly. "Shouldn't what?" My voice cracked on the word. Her lips pressed together. She didn't answer, but her meaning was clear. The age gap hung between us like smoke. The unspoken risk, neighbors talking, friends finding out, her world colliding with mine. I knew it. She knew it. Neither of us said it out loud. But when I stood to leave, thanking her for the wine, she surprised me. Her hand brushed mine as she took the glass from me. Not accidental. Not hesitant, either. Her thumb lingered against my knuckle, just long enough to make my chest tighten. She didn't look up when she whispered, "You don't know how dangerous this is." And I didn't let go. Her thumb still rested on my hand when the sound of a car door slammed outside. She pulled back instantly, glass clinking against the counter. "Go," she whispered, sharp, urgent. "What? What?" "Just go." She glanced toward the front of the house, eyes narrowing. The calm, composed woman I'd seen minutes earlier was gone. I hesitated. Then the front door opened. A man's voice carried down the hall. "Claire? You up?" My stomach dropped. Her husband? No, she'd said divorced. Her face flickered, just for a second, with something raw. She mouthed, "My son." My chest tightened. I'd never met him, but I knew enough. We'd played basketball once at the rec center before I even knew whose kid he was. She shoved me toward the back door, whispering, "Please. He can't see you here." I should have left. It would have been smarter. Cleaner. But my feet stayed rooted. Her son's footsteps approached. She turned, smoothing her robe, schooling her voice. "In the kitchen," she called out, almost casual. I ducked behind the pantry doorway, every nerve on fire. He appeared, tall, younger than me by maybe 3 years, still carrying the restless energy of someone not yet settled into his own skin. "Didn't expect you up," he said, eyeing the empty wine glass on the counter. "Couldn't sleep," she replied, too quickly. "What are you doing home?" "Class canceled tomorrow. Thought I'd crash here." He grabbed a soda from the fridge, and for a terrifying moment, his gaze swept toward the pantry. I held my breath. But he didn't see me, just muttered, "Night," and disappeared down the hall. The silence that followed was deafening. When I finally stepped out, she was already leaning against the counter, both hands gripping its edge. Her shoulders sagged, relief mingling with something else, shame, maybe. "I shouldn't have let you in," she murmured, not looking at me. "You didn't," I said quietly. "You opened the door." Her laugh was short, bitter. "That's worse." I wanted to tell her I didn't care, that I'd risk it, that the way her hand had lingered on mine meant something I couldn't just shake off. But before I could, she turned sharply. "You need to go? Tonight. Before this gets..." She stopped herself. "Gets what?" I asked. Her eyes finally met mine. They were bright, almost desperate. "Before I forget how wrong it is." The words landed like a slap. But then, almost in the same breath, she reached up, brushing a loose curl behind her ear, and for half a second her fingers trembled. It would have been easy to close the space then. To touch her, to kiss her, to let all the unspoken words crash into something real. Instead, we stood there, too close, not moving. My heart pounded so hard I thought her son could hear it through the walls. She whispered, "Don't make me choose." And then she turned away, leaving me in the kitchen, every part of me aching with the words I hadn't said. I didn't sleep that night. Her words, "Don't make me choose," looped through my head until they were less warning, more invitation. The next evening, I found myself walking the same street again. I told myself it was coincidence, but when her window light flicked on, my body betrayed me. I stopped. I stared. And when the curtain shifted, when I saw her silhouette pause at the glass, I knew she'd seen me too. A second later, the back door creaked open. "You're reckless," she hissed, pulling me inside before anyone on the street could see. "Do you want my son to find out? The neighbors?" But she didn't let go of my wrist right away. I swallowed hard. "You wouldn't have opened the door if you didn't want me here." Her lips parted, then closed again. She paced to the counter, poured another glass of wine with hands that weren't steady. "You think this is about what I want?" she asked finally. "It is." I stepped closer. My voice shook, but I didn't back down. "Because I can't stop thinking about you." She turned sharply, eyes flashing. as if anger was safer than honesty. You don't know what you're saying. I do. You're 26. And you're 45. My chest tightened, but I pushed the words out anyway. So what? You think I don't see you? That I don't. I stopped. Too much. But it was already out there, hanging heavy in the kitchen air. She set her glass down harder than she meant to, red spilling onto the counter. You shouldn't. Her voice cracked on the word, and for the first time, she looked afraid. Not of me. Of herself. I stepped closer, slow, careful. Then tell me to leave. Look me in the eye and mean it. Her breath hitched. She tried. I saw her lips form the beginning of the words. But nothing came out. The silence was louder than shouting. I reached for the counter to steady myself, but my hand brushed hers instead. A jolt shot through me. She didn't pull away. Her eyes locked on mine, raw and unguarded. Do you have any idea what you're doing to me? Yes. My voice was barely a whisper. Her hand trembled against mine, but it stayed there. And then, softer still, almost like she hated herself for it, she said, if my son finds out. I leaned closer, close enough to see the line of freckles across her cheekbone, the quiver in her lip. He won't. Her breath warmed my face. The space between us was nothing now, just one choice, one slip, 1 second too long. She didn't move. Neither did I. The tension was unbearable, magnetic, like the moment before lightning splits the sky. And then, the hallway floor creaked. We froze. The floor creaked again. This time it wasn't just her son moving around half asleep. It was deliberate, heading toward us. She pushed me back, urgent whisper cutting through the air. Hide. I slipped into the pantry just as the kitchen door swung open. Mom. His voice carried that sharp, suspicious edge. She turned, already forcing calm. You're still up? Couldn't sleep. His eyes swept the counter, the 2 glasses, the faint spill of wine she hadn't cleaned. He frowned. Were you with someone? Her hand tightened on the counter. No. Why would you? Because, he cut in, holding up his phone. I saw you. Through the window. My blood ran cold in the dark. He stepped farther into the kitchen, his voice lower now, angrier. Who was it? You're not even being careful. She tried to brush past him, but he blocked her way. It's none of your business, she said, steadier than she looked. It is when people talk. His jaw clenched. I've already heard things. Neighbors saying you've been different lately. Her breath hitched, just for a second, before she pulled her shoulders back. They don't know me. And you don't get to lecture me like, I have a right, he snapped. Dad left because of this. Didn't he? The words hung heavy, poisonous. I saw her flinch. Her silence was enough of an answer for him. He turned away, disgust flickering across his face. God, you're doing it again. I couldn't stay hidden. My chest burned with every word he threw at her. Before I could stop myself, I stepped out. His eyes widened, then narrowed. Recognition hit instantly. You? His voice cracked, half disbelieving, half furious. You're the guy from the gym. The one who, Caleb, stop, she tried, reaching for him. But he pulled back. His gaze darted between us, piecing it together in real time. Unbelievable. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Nothing I could say would make it better. He shook his head. You're barely older than me. He spat at me, then turned on her. And you? God, Mom, what are you doing? Her face crumpled for just a moment before she straightened again, her voice quieter but fiercer. I don't owe you an explanation. The look he gave her was pure betrayal. Without another word, he stormed out, the slam of his bedroom door rattling the walls. The silence afterward was brutal. She gripped the counter with both hands, knuckles white. I wanted to reach for her, to say something, but she shook her head. This isn't a secret anymore, she whispered, not looking at me. The ground had shifted. What felt fragile and hidden an hour ago was now exposed, raw, and dangerous. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if what pulled us together was strong enough to survive it. The silence after Caleb's door slammed was worse than the slam itself. She stood at the counter, back to me, shoulders rigid. I wanted to reach for her, to tell her it would be okay, but the words felt hollow even before they formed. Finally, she spoke, voice low. He hates me now. I shook my head. He doesn't. You didn't see his face. She turned then, and her eyes shone with something I hadn't seen before. Not anger, not even regret, but fear. It's happening all over again. I swallowed. What is? She laughed softly, bitterly. When his father left. He looked at me the same way, like I'd ruined everything. Her hands gripped the counter tighter. Maybe I did. No, I said, stepping closer. That's not. Yes, it is. She cut me off, sharp, desperate. Then her voice cracked. I'm the common thread, don't you see? I don't get to want things. Not anymore. Not when it destroys everyone around me. Her words landed heavy, but I couldn't back down. I closed the space between us, forcing her to look at me. You think this is destruction? My voice shook, but I held her gaze. Because it doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like the first thing that's real. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. I pushed further, reckless now. Tell me it means nothing. Tell me to walk away, and I will. But if you can't, then stop pretending you don't feel it. The kitchen was so quiet I could hear the hum of the fridge, the faint tick of the clock. Her breath was shallow, her hands trembling at her sides. Finally, she whispered, "You make me feel 20 again." The words hung between us, fragile and explosive. I reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Her fingers laced with mine, tentative, terrified, but real. "But I can't lose him," she added, voice breaking. "Not again. Not because of this." I nodded, throat tight. "Then we'll figure it out. We don't have to define it tonight." She closed her eyes, leaning her forehead against mine. You don't know how much I want to believe that. I wanted to kiss her then, to seal everything we'd left unsaid. But I didn't. Neither of us moved. The almost was louder than the act itself. When she finally pulled back, her hand lingered in mine a second longer before slipping away. "You should go," she said, barely audible. I nodded, though my feet refused to move right away. At the doorway, I turned back. She stood there, framed in the yellow kitchen light, looking both broken and alive in a way I'd never seen. We didn't say goodbye. We didn't have to. Whatever we were, forbidden, impossible, inevitable, it wasn't finished. And that was the most dangerous truth of all. I didn't see her for 3 days. Each night, I found myself walking the same street, stopping just short of her house, staring at the dark window that had once drawn me in. But I didn't knock. I didn't text. I didn't even let myself pace the sidewalk too long, because if Caleb saw me again, it would tear her apart. On the 4th day, she called. Just my name, soft, over the phone. "Can you come by?" When I arrived, the house was quiet. No extra shoes by the door. No second voice in the hallway. Just her, sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee gone cold. "I told him," she said before I could even sit. My stomach dropped. "Everything." She nodded. "Not all the details, but enough. That I care about someone. That it's not what he thinks. That I won't apologize for it." She exhaled, shaky. He walked out. Said he needed space. Her eyes searched mine, bracing for judgment. Instead, I pulled out the chair across from her. That took guts. She laughed bitterly. Or stupidity. Time will tell. We sat in silence. Not the awkward kind anymore. The heavy, lived-in kind, where words weren't needed. I watched her fingers trace the rim of her mug. She watched me fidget with the table edge. Neither of us knew what came next, but the fact that we were still here meant something. Finally, she whispered, "Do you regret this?" Any of it. The question hit hard. I thought of the nights staring at her window, the fear in her son's eyes, the weight of secrets. But I also thought of her laugh, her trembling hand against mine, the way she made the world sharpen into something alive. "No," I said. "Not once." Her eyes softened. She reached across the table, not hiding this time, and her hand found mine. "We don't know where this goes," she murmured. "I don't care," I replied, voice steadier than I felt. "We'll figure it out. Together." For a long moment, we just sat there, hands clasped across the scarred kitchen table, a fragile truce against the noise of the world. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't safe. But it was real. And maybe real was enough. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Just before I stepped out, she leaned close, lips brushing my ear. "This stays between us," she whispered. I turned, met her eyes, and smiled. "Then seal it with a kiss." This time, she didn't hesitate. "Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?"